We're back. Welcome to Print Your Games. Whoa. My microphone is doing weird nonsense. How do I sound?
It sounded fine. We are a live show, everybody, if you're already listening. At least when we start recording.
I'm going to have to fix this in post. Sorry, gang.
You will never hear this. You will never hear it anywhere but right now. But welcome to the show. While Param adjusts his microphone, I'll try to talk in a soothing monotone.
Where is my short motive? I need my short motive.
You sound okay. But you know it. I guess you know if something's wrong.
It was shut down. So my microphone has software. And the software is not running.
Oh, no. Well, it's kind of a nice segue for this episode. Because sometimes things go wrong and bad things happen.
And
we're back.
Okay, so this should do it. Yes. All set up correctly. I've got my compressor and my equalizer and all my fun stuff going. Anyway, sorry about that, gang. Sorry about that.
I was trying to distract them with the dragon, but it wasn't a printed dragon, so I feel a little cheap here. Printed nightmare monster. I know we're live. Sorry, Seacat. There was technical problems, but anyway.
Excellent, everybody. Okay, let's restart. Regather, restart. You do not know that we goofed the episode. And we're back. Welcome to Print Your Games, the podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gamers. I'm your host, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery.
And we're back this week, Kristen, which is great.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, we're coming up on 1 year of the Print Your Games podcast. Yes. We've got next week's episode will be our 1 year anniversary episode.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. But in the meantime, while we are back, not all of the Patreons we know and love are always back at the beginning of the month.
It is true, and it's been a kill count this month for sure.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but man, we noticed quite a few people deciding that, you know what? Maybe this 3D printing business ain't for me. And we will definitely get talking about that as the meat of the episode. But before we dredge into the depths of the depressed and the forgotten, let's talk about the fun things we be doing right now.
Yay.
So, got any cool project stuff? Any good hobby going on, Kristen?
Yes. I had in both of my live games, my Pathfinder 3.5 game and my D&D game, I had Nightmare Horrible Monsters for my Halloween weekend that I printed up.
Of course you did.
Of course. Well, I mean, let's be honest, it didn't have to be Halloween, but it was Halloween, coincidentally enough. And I had from Dormant God, which is Flesh Crafts Kickstarter they just ran. They just fulfilled those minis. And I had a bunch of their aspects of ego, I think they are, or lesser ego aspects that are really creepy, very kind of Slender Man looking. Then sorry, I was just reading the cat listing. Sorry. Then I did it's an Eldritch Lich. It's a kind of a one-off, not from a normal Patreon creator, just somebody who created this kind of little kit of there's some that have masks and some that have kind of explodey, vapory tentacle heads, and then they have like lobster claws or hands, and they have multiple limbs, and they're just horrifying. And they painted them up in kind of a gradient to make them look like they were kind of fading into reality was the idea. And that was the nightmares for my Saturday game. And then I had these guys, the Void Rippers that I started printing a couple weeks ago. I finally printed off the rest of them and have like a whole group of them in their terrible pustule monster things that they're gross. My players fought those yesterday on Halloween proper. So did a lot of printing and a lot of painting last week.
I haven't had a Halloween game in ages. I think the last Halloween game I did was a Pathfinder Society one.
Oh, wow.
Where they got to fight pumpkin monsters. It was actually a society adventure that was Halloween themed. And so I went I had a bunch of like little wood elemental minis, and I
Hmm.
went to the hobby store. I went to Michael's, and I got a whole bunch of stickers, like little tiny Halloween sticker pumpkin jack o' lanterns, and just stuck it to their faces. And that's how they had pumpkin monsters to fight that year.
Well, last year I had
Hmm.
did pumpkin monsters for my Halloween game, and I had the
Hmm.
big ones from Dragon Trappers. I had the big ones from um, what you call it, Miniature Monster Mayhem. Is that the name of it?
Ah, yes, Mini Monster Mayhem.
Yes, and one other one. But yeah, I had a whole bunch of big pumpkin monsters and pumpkin-headed scarecrow monsters, and it was super cool and creepy. But yeah, they had some nice large size that had like the stalks were turned into big scythes that looked organic, and they're really neat looking. But yeah, that was last year, and I was like, I don't want to just drag them out again. Maybe next year I'll do a pumpkin reprise because that's fun still. But yeah,
Revenge of the Pumpkin King.
that's right. It was even bad because they were in the same place in the campaign setting where it happened. And I was like, gosh, it would be so easy to just drag these out again. But I was like, no, I started the nightmares. I need to do the nightmares. So, but it would have been really easy to do. So I kind of feel like I maybe still should have done it. But well, I got nightmares now. Lots of them. Big ones
I
and little
like
ones.
nightmares.
No, you
Yeah.
don't.
So my hobby this week has been, let's see here, the beginning of the print of the Ratties,
Oh, the what?
or the Rats.
Oh, the rat. You're doing the cute rats from OPR.
Yes.
The
OPR Rats.
noble ratmen.
Indeed. I am going to enjoy this army of rats. I'm committed to 2,000 points of rats.
I
at
tell
this
you,
point.
you
And
need to
that's a
sneak
lot
in.
of rats.
You need to sneak in those Sparrow Riders from Lord of the Prince new mouse
Those
ones.
do look really cool.
They look amazing and adorable. And I would have to have some nice Sparrow Riders if I was going to do it. I have a mouse owlbear rider in one of my other games, and I'm like, oh, I kind of need to reprise that now. So, but yeah, that's cool. You've been working on that. I think you were working on something else too, right?
I am working on my FDM printer is finally up and running, and after that firmware update, that Neptune 3 is just as reliable as my little Neptune 2. It's just churning out prints.
Cool.
Which is I have to wash the bed. That metal bed collects oil a lot more than the original textured bed from the Neptune 2 did. So I am having to clean that bed a lot more often. But other than that, just perfectly level, perfectly good prints. And right now I'm printing the Archmage Tower from Ian Lovecraft's Kickstarter from Tale of Two Cities.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it is this humongous, grim, darky
Four
type
or
of
five
tower.
tiers, right?
It
It's
is.
pretty big.
It is four. It is four print jobs. So you've got the basement level, which it's kind of cool when you have a 3D printable playable interior that includes a basement. I dig
Yeah.
that. It has like the first floor, second floor, and then like the attic, which is slash the roof, and it's all like tottered over tower with very grimdark aesthetics. It would go really well with any sort of the Lovecraftian stuff. But the basement alone is a
Mm-hmm.
2-day print.
Wow.
2 entire days of printing. And I'm just like, oh gosh. But like when I put it on my print and I saw it do the outline, it just like basically goes out to the complete edge of the print. This is going to max out this printer's volume.
May the FDM gods be with you, because that would be terrible if that thing choked.
But hey, at least if it chokes 90% of the way through it, I'm out a couple of bucks, and not like if this was made of resin.
Fair enough.
Oh my gosh. I want to pull up a picture of it here.
Yeah, it was funny because
I
you showed me
can.
the picture a couple days ago, I was kind of surprised because I've been seeing all these like big high elven, bladed with crystal tower things, and this is definitely not that. This is definitely, like you said, grimdarky, kind of a more tottering. Yes, there it is.
Yeah, so it's got like attached on like real curvy bricky stuff, and patched on roofs, and like a balcony, and like a bunch of missing tiles, and all weird jaunty angles, and I really love it. This will be a great tower in the woods for that board I was talking about last week. So I'm finally got it going, and I'm happy. Happy.
Yeah, it looks
Hope
like
the
you
print
might
succeeds.
because the door is up. You almost could build it into some foam cut, like a cliff, like a hillside, right? Because then the main door is actually on the second tier on this thing. If you're listening to this, the basement level is literally meant to be kind of a sub basement, and I don't think you would probably hide the whole thing, but I could see like putting it up against like a cliffside or a hillside on some terrain and a big board. It would make sense.
I really want to get me some dirty down moss for this
Yeah.
thing to like put in the cracks and on the rocks down there. And
I swear I did a service for Dirty Down last week because I went around town looking to see if anybody had already got it. And I had to educate almost every hobby store in our state about whether or not, what it was and where to get it. And I was just like, oh, come on. Like nobody has it here. So I'm going to have to order it.
No, I'm going to have to order it because none of my local stores carry anything that niche.
Yes.
Like,
I saw Wisconsin is like the distributor or something somewhere in there.
I love my local stores, but the most niche paint I can get around here is Army Painter. And that's like saying that I love my bread spicy because I put mayo on it.
Right. You can get your Italian at Olive Garden.
I
hear you.
Yeah, but speaking of, I ended up tracking down an Army Painter paint specifically
I
because
can't read the title. Which one is
this?
It?
Is Toxic Mist. And this will be my first play around with their War Paints brand in a long time because I wasn't exactly pleased with it the first time I played around with it. But I am tired of mixing this myself every single time I have to paint a zombie.
It looks like your undead undertone color very close.
Yeah, it is it is very close to the little glowy mist that I put on all of my undead army, like the werewolf, for instance. And oh gosh, it is like, to mix it myself, it is 1 part green from Procryl. I'm using Procryls to do all the paints these days. So it's 1 part green, 1 part sky blue, and 2 parts white mixed together to make this color. And every single time I do it, I have to go toot, 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 and then mix it together and get my dry brush and do my dry brushing. And then by the time I go back for the next zombie, it's dry. So I have to do it again.
Yeah,
so
it
now,
seems like it's
hopefully
a bit of a waste of color because you're usually doing 1 or 2 at a time. And I imagine you don't even need those 4 drops to do them for the dry brush. But
yeah, I mean, at max, I paint in batches of 6. Like, that's my max batch for batch painting, because past that, I can do it. I've done, as an experiment, I did a full 20 batch once just to see if I could do it. And I tell you, my little ADHD brain was just like, I don't want to do this no more.
If I was
hyper-focusing, have some dysfunction.
If I was hyper-focusing, I could do that, but my hands would get shaky. My hands would get shaky, and I would start making sloppy mistakes.
Yeah, but it's like, if I can turn on hyper focus like a superpower, I can't do that. If I could do that, I wouldn't need my Adderall.
I can with gaming stuff usually.
But this is a break. This is a major change in Param's painting style, because I do not traditionally go out and seek a very particular shade of paint, because Param has been the I only need 8 paints kind of person since 20 years of miniature painting. I want pure 1 pigment. I just need pure pigment paints with high pigment density, and I can mix and match anything I see easy. And I can. But this is the first time I've broken down to go get, I need that very, very particular mint green.
Not only do I go get all the weird colors, and then worse, because of my little scramble brain, forget that where I put them or that I bought them. And so I find these little mysterious plastic baggies 2 months later, like, oh, here's that green that I got for those things that I've already finished. Anyway, I actually, speaking of the exciting paints we just got, I got the Duncan Rhodes paints finally. Someone was kind enough to get me them for my birthday and Christmas. I want to say a year or 2 years ago. But they have arrived, and I just just got them, and I'm excited to try them out. I am a little surprised they're little small bottles, so I'm gonna, if I fall in love with them, hopefully they are easy to get replacements for, because there's not going to be a lot in those bottles. And you know me, I'm going to end up squirting half of one of those bottles on myself within a month. So yeah, I agree, C-Cat. The don't mixing them and stuff. I like, the thing for me is I've been using craft paint on terrain, and I even have a notebook for my terrain to, like, okay, I used, crappy gray and cheapo white or whatever in this ratio. They still aren't the same. I've been trying to get my stuff to match. I did really good for 2 or 3 sets of Dungeons and Lasers, but again, they're cheap paints. And so when I got a new bottle, I don't think it's actually the same color. It's close, but they just don't look right, so.
I am very happy that my little art brain is able to, like, I can do the, I don't know if you've seen the TikTok challenge where, like, you take a banana or an apple, and then you see, can I match this color by mixing it?
Yeah. I've not seen that one.
Yes.
It's
it's a fun little challenge. It's like, can you mix this color and match it exactly? And then there's a little app on your phone that'll take a difference. And I can usually get like 98, 99% accurate.
Nice.
I also went on a hobby hunting tool to get a new thing,
but not from
one of my. No, well, it's paint related.
Okay.
It is one of my favorite hobby tools ever, and everyone needs it. It is the Reaper Paint Pokey Tool.
Okay, James, who really liked your Mage Tower, by the way, he said in chat, brought up an excellent point with this on Facebook, and I don't know if you saw it. It's pushing the plug of dry paint back into your paint. Is that a problem?
Nope, not a problem.
Not a problem.
Because most likely that paint will reconstitute itself over time and turn back into the rest of the paint as it's exposed to the moisture, and slowly, especially if it's a whole lot of moisture and not a lot of clog. Secondly, it's highly unlikely that it's going to jam itself right back in there anytime soon, just due to physics and probability, and the fact that hopefully you've got a little bit of mixing balls in there that's pulverizing it the whole time you're shaking it. And finally, if it does, you just poke it again.
Fair. I was just wondering if it maybe created chunky consistency in the paint or something. But
it does not, because you're usually dealing with a tiny infinitesimal barrier of paint that needs to be, and it is actually sharp at one point.
It's actually sharp. And it has a skull on it.
Press.
If you're listening to it, it is a skull on a pen, and it's a thick pin. You poke into your paint when it dries up.
Yeah. It is absolutely just a hat pin with a skull soldered on it. Yeah, there's nothing special about it. Nothing special about it at all. And it's $7, but I won't lose it. I will know exactly what it's for. It's never going to end up into my my sewing kit ever, because I'm not going to accidentally put this away. I'm never going to go to my little scrunchy little tomato and stab it in there.
You would never go to one of those tomatoes or like a little fish and take one of those little pins out of the fish and
that's how I lose all
the room and then use that on your paint. You would never do that.
I've done that about 77 times.
I would never do that either.
They when I use just normal sewing pins for this, I will lose them very quickly, and that's the problem.
The other craft in our house is quilting, for those who are unaware, and I've never taken one of those pins out of that fish.
Also, there's just really not a good way of unclogging the bottle without using a thing that's going to go in there and poke it, because the alternative, the reason you use a tool like this is the alternative, and the temptation is, oh, it's clogged. That means squeeze harder, right?
Oh, yes.
And that's how you get an entire desk covered in toxic mist.
I have archive footage of me shooting an entire bottle of tan all over me. So
James says, from my fin cushion.
No, that's never happened ever.
Oh, yeah. So that's our hobby. I actually have one other hobby thing. I have successfully talked 2 of my friends into 3D printing, and on Saturday I'm going to be going and helping out a friend set up their resin printer. They're becoming the kind receiver of my Mercury, my old Mercury clean station that I have just been sitting in the corner collecting dust.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I
That's fun.
I have
More
a
printing.
couple of the D&D TikTok players that have been interacting with me that are like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I keep seeing you post your prints. I ordered a Saturn. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
we'll do it.
Yes. I saw a Mercury X on sale today for $302.
Mm. Hmm.
I mean, I like Saturn's better, but that's a darn cheap price for a 9-inch
Yeah.
printer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
And we've
Okay.
put off the depressing
We
topic
have.
long enough. We really have. I need to talk about it. So there's a whole lot. There's a whole lot of Patreons out there. I mean, there were 218 the last time I looked to being tracked on STL bundles alone. So that's a lot of Patreons out there. And we've had several guests on here that have talked about like, oh, it's starting to get to be a crowded place. It
Mm-hmm.
sure is becoming a crowded place. And unfortunately, over the years, people have started to bow out. And that's to be expected for Indian industry. You know, people come into the business and for various reasons, people come out of the business. And that is sad. But it's just the nature of things. It's not for everybody. But with increased amount of artists and Patreons and services and subscriptions out there, it is really hard these days to come up with an offering that stands out as different or better. And and
Well,
so a lot of we've seen some people say they're not doing it no more.
yep. If
Yeah.
it's not different and better, then it has to be value,
Mm-hmm.
which usually means quantity,
Yep.
which is
Oof.
a
So
lot of
let's
work. So
so this month we have seen Broken Anvil Studios, which is the big headliner for sure, saying they're going on pause indefinitely, at least until the end of 2022. They reiterate that this is a pause and not an end, but they're talking about burning the candle at both ends, complaints about unauthorized sellers and piracy, lots of reasons that kind of justifying their decision to put a pause on this. And also, Broken Anvil, we can't forget, has been a bit of a darling in the mini community for a while now, with Rivenstone being a humongous success, and a lot of like the painting YouTubers loving Rivenstone. And they've got another campaign going out called Forged, which looks to be a whole lot of their 3D printable minis available as Sealcast models. And they definitely are kind of doubling back down on the physical production of minis side of things again, as opposed to the digital production side of minis again. But still, they're one of the best Patreons out there. They put out an incredible amount of material each month with very good sculpts, super stylized. I mean, I was on and off again with them based on what they were doing each month, but I have several of their sets, and I'm really sad to see them leave the market, at least pause on the market, and they may be
yeah,
back.
they were actually my second annual sub,
Oh,
because it was a
goodness.
good deal, and I
Mm-hmm.
got my full fulfillment of that. I'm super happy with every release. I like
Mm-hmm.
literally won't complain about a single thing I got, especially
Mm-hmm.
getting it at that better price. And then I immediately was the first that I actually renewed. My other one, my first annual sub, I did not renew, and but yeah, it was the first one I renewed and jumped on that, and just kind of was stunned because they felt like they had everything dialed in, and they felt like they were, they had a good rhythm. Their releases were huge. They easily could have half the releases, and I still would have been happy,
Right.
because
Yeah.
the model counts were so high. And then, to just kind of, there was that first rumble when Rivenstone came out and the COCast stuff started, that suddenly, like, there was this other, it was like the little brother had been born, and the older child wasn't as important
Right.
anymore.
Like we've seen other crews that have made the switch to 3D printing do big physical productions, but usually when Bloodstone came out, that was a COcast produced game from Titanforge. but you could
Blood
also
fields.
print
Blood
blood
fields, right?
fields.
Yeah.
But you could also print it. And so they would come out with these big physical release versions or big physical release campaigns for their products, which, makes sense. Not everybody has or wants to 3D print their stuff.
Right.
And COcast seems to be a wonderful tool and a magic solution to a lot of problems. But they would always have printable as an option.
Yeah, and I was stunned, like literally.
Yeah.
I thought they were joking when they said they weren't going to make Rivenstone 3D printable. I was like, wait, where's the pledge level? And I even sent a message. I was like, was it an early thing? Did I miss it? And they were like, no, there's not one. I'm like, excuse me?
I was confused too. When I first saw that they were doing it, I was like, aha, let's get on there and get my STI. Wait, what?
Wait,
what? And it's not going to use the ones, you're not going to be like Titan Forge or Cast and Play that have both done this?
Well, even partial, hell, Brandon Sanderson, you can get all the troops for his big mini thing as STLs. Even if they just had like packs of scatter, the crystal scatters terrain, I would have bought that,
Yeah. But it seems that they just don't want to be doing it.
Yeah.
It's been a pattern. You've got some quotes from them saying that, hey, with Rivenstone, they said that they might have to pause for a month or two. And honestly, miniature companies doing a pause is not uncommon. A lot of my favorite companies have done a pause for a month or two.
A couple of them even have built-in ones around the holidays. They always take off November or December. Yeah.
Like one of my favorites, Last Sword Miniatures, has paused a couple of times over the years when they need to catch up or, can't guarantee that they're going to be able to hit the monthly release. So they pause for a month to catch up. But usually it's like, they don't use the phrase indefinite. The word indefinite is a scary thing in business because like temporarily indefinitely closing usually is followed by sorry, we ain't coming back in most situations that phrase is used.
Well, it scares me because I still have 10 months paid up on the annual.
So, no.
Like,
how are they going to handle? Like, I wonder how that is going to be handled, like with a pause and stuff. How does that work? Like if they're just paused until like a couple of months and then they come back in January, I guess no big deal as long as it keeps going. But
right. and literally at first there was zero response. And then I just got the form letter. If you've done Patreons before and have an annual, you get a little form letter when they go on pause for the month that just says, hey, this creator's taking a break. Your current month is not going to be billed against your thing, and your end date moved out a month. And that's what I got. That's the only communication I got, and it was from Patreon, not Broken Anvil. So
yeah, definitely would. Like they haven't posted anything to their Patreon since the 19th on this whatsoever. So
there's been a little bit on the Discord, and the Discord mostly has revolved around the merchant tier because there's some question of whether or not the merchant tier should be discounted because they're not getting new content. And right now, my understanding is that if you still want to stay a merchant, you still have to be in the monthly at the full price. So that's weird.
Yeah, especially when they're talking about in the message, they are indeed talking about one of the complaints is unauthorized sellers that are evidently not merchant tier but selling prints of their minis is one of their complaints and reason why they have talked about pausing.
Right.
But that's a complaint that that's a complaint that doesn't seem to lead to pausing in my mind, which is why the phrase pause and then read the rest of the letter, it reads like reasons why we might stop. Because if you have a problem with piracy in this, pausing for 2 months isn't going to solve the problem. It's just going to mean you lose customers.
Right. In fact, it's going to cause more people to go rogue, in my experience. I've taken a break. I haven't released something for several months now. And at my whole catalog, I mean, it's usually on piracy sites, but more and more I see it just everywhere, like on being pirated. And when people want you and you're not providing new content, they steal your old content, actually, which is horrible, but yeah.
Piracy hurts in every digital distributed industry and not digital distributed industry. Every media industry has had to deal with it in some form of the matter. Traditionally, for bigger groups, it hurts less than for smaller publishers, where it can hurt amazingly more. And Broken Anvil, we talk about the others like trying to compete in this space and get get a significant number of subscribers as some of the ones that they have some of the reasons they have mentioned not continuing to do their releases. But Broken Anvil, that was not a concern. Broken Anvil was big. Broken Anvil had thousands of backers. They were one of the most popular 3D printed groups, period. Like I don't know how that has affected things now with the pause, how many people have left. I mean, but traditionally quite a bit of people usually leave during a pause.
Oh,
and
yeah. It's plummeted.
Yeah. And honestly, I see it happen with just the episodes. When we have had to take weeks off, it takes us a little while to get those numbers back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're not there, if you're not reliable, which scares me because that, to me, again, just going off of my own experience with business, when your audience then leaves or stops following you, you then are going to have a weaker release on your next release. And you probably have been trying to grow your business. So you're going to be underwhelmed by the performance of your first new releases, right? And the interest in keeping the Patreon going is going to be smaller for sure, especially if they're getting these physical products out and they're doing well. I hope I can get a refund if they eventually decide to just can it.
I have to imagine you will, because Patreon will step in if nobody else at that point. Like I have managed to complain to Patreon once when a creator was not fulfilling their end of the bargain and get a refund before. So
yeah.
So hope so. Now, the other groups that have canceled this month are Dusk Realms, which, hurts us a little bit because they were friends of the show. They were doing some really wild, way out there sculpts and concepts, like
very unusual
halflings stuff. Riding iguanas with rocket launchers and like wicked awesome space dwarves and Space Marines, but they're all bushidoed out with like steampunk weaponry. And it's like, I loved it because it was so creative and the sculpt qualities were great. And you got a whole bunch of bang for your buck. And that starter kit, that welcome pack they had was legit great.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was pretty affordable too. Like it was smaller price wise.
It's like a $5 a month sub.
Yeah, and decent model count for that for sure. I think we know them enough to know that they had a very small team, and I think that's probably what contributed to that. It's a real thing if you got like I think of Scott over at Comet Lord. I'm surprised he's moving so strong. I think he had to take 1 month off, but that he cranks all that out himself. These smaller companies, the stress is real. The burnout is real. I totally get it.
And honestly, when I was following them, they never really were able to get, and this is kind of the ones that we see bow out. It's usually they weren't able to get more than a few hundred subscribers. Honestly, I don't know that Dusk Realms even broke 200 over the course of its entire campaign.
Yeah, it did seem to have trouble hanging on to people and drawing people in, which is interesting because it did have very unique offerings. I just think it was probably maybe a marketing disconnect, and then just it's exhausting to create and not be seen.
They did 2 different sets they were fans of the show and did 2 different versions of me and Kristen as characters in their releases, both of which are still available on their website. If you want to go check them out, we do recommend you do so. And send them a little bit of message of love if you like their models and stuff. But they're not pausing. They're done. They've shut down.
Yeah. I quit in big capital letters.
Yeah. With the phrase "too busy for this place and tired."
Yep.
And then one more was Crypta Studios, also bowing out this month.
Was their 1-year anniversary.
They cited low subscriber count as one of the motivating factors for them too, but they're not bowing out of the industry entirely.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to be going to Kickstarters, right? Or Frontiers, maybe. And I see like one of the reasons they did is their quality. They were frustrated by the rush creating quality breaches, and their stuff is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, it is amazing.
Yeah,
And
Crypto stuff is detailed, realistic proportions, a crazy amount of details. I love their dwarves. Their dwarves look great.
if you've seen my horrible skull-faced elder brain, it's from them. That's how actually one of the things I discovered them through. They have sci-fi and fantasy stuff in there. Just really neat stuff, and I think that they were absolutely candid because it is high quality and it's just too much too fast to do it,
Right.
to keep up with it.
Yeah, and so but they're going Kickstarter only. There's quite a few groups that have been Kickstarter only and stayed that way. We talk about Lovecraft all the time. Lovecraft is a Kickstarter only crew. They get together. RM Studios, who just has their new set out right now in a campaign called Can the Glim Reclaimed, is also Kickstarter only crew. They don't do the monthly release. And for a long time, this was the only way 3D files were being distributed was Kickstarter and Frontier campaigns. Okay, Canaglim Reclaimed is a Frontiers campaign from our own printables. So shout out to them. We will be interviewing them in a couple of weeks. It's really cool dwarf set. I like the dwarves. The dwarves look awesome, but the reason I love it is the terrain.
Ice terrain. It's really
These
neat.
Gigantic cliffs, just absolutely massive cliffs. It looks like nobody else has a piece of terrain like that. And honestly, looking at it, that could be painted to be ice. That could be painted to be rock. There's not. Like it's a pretty,
obsidian.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, pretty flexible.
We've got a chance to look at some of the STLs, and they're really neat.
Yeah, so all that to say that, hey, the Kickstarter campaign works. I'm definitely glad that their art's not leaving the community, that we're going to still see them produce material. And honestly, maybe that is the best that might be a good model for a lot of creators, because this monthly release, it really is becoming a bit of a knife fight, because on one end, you've got teams of like 40 plus people working together, just like dozens of artists and dozens of other types of artists and marketing campaigns and stuff, so that you get a Titan Forge release and it's got 2 full freaking armies included in it, or you've got OPR, disclaimer, I work for OPR, who releases literally 3 armies this month and like dozens and dozens of miniatures. And that's a lot for any small team to when this was first started. A lot of these campaigns were single people coming in at it, and just like I remember Line Tower, their stuff, they've been on pause several times over their exist. They're not on pause right now,
right?
Or Hero, like one that has been gone for over a year now, but one of my absolute favorites, Hero Spawn Spot, who did like this really awesome steampunk Victorian styled fantasy with like very cool detailed original stuff, and it just wasn't pulling numbers. You need to be honest, just for one person, the amount of patrons you need is probably like 300-400 to keep a above the poverty line here in the States.
Yeah.
Minimum.
And that's assuming you're putting out a pretty big release too, because otherwise you're gonna have to charge less. Like I definitely run into some creators that only release 2 or 3 models a month, and that's just
the boutique style.
Yeah, and even some of them like have slowly but surely added that 3rd model, out of that 4th model, and it's just like I feel bad because they're gonna have to stop that trend eventually, right?
Right. Yeah. And like with any business, it's that first year is rough, where you're losing more money than you're getting into it, and you're hoping to grow. And it's real. I pity anybody entering this market right now with as many people are doing it, because you've got to stand out. You've either got to put out a ton of models or like some incredibly high quality stylized set of a few models that will stand out. So like we talk about Twin Goddess, we talk about what's the other one that with little otter people?
Little otter people.
Starts with a P.
Starts with a P.
Gosh, I'm terrible at this. So sorry.
It's okay. Now I'm obsessing. We need to move on with it. But yeah, there's a lot of boutique, smaller ones like that.
And you can pull that, you can do that, but you've got to stand out. And it's really, really hard to stand out. And also, there's the reality of the market. Coming in with a whole bunch of original sculpts is great for people that want to paint minis.
Mhm.
But if they want to use those minis in a game, they have to be minis they can use in the game.
Yeah, it has to be a
Which
game
I
to
know
go
that
with
has
it.
frustrated a lot of creators who feel forced to either make D&D stuff or make Warhammer stuff because that's
Right.
the two big markets that want stuff.
Yep.
So if you're doing original monsters, that means there's an added expense, or you better hope that you're a good game designer to give 5e stats to all your original monsters and target that crowd. Or on the flip side, you're going to be making the next batch of Space Marines,
Yeah.
and that's always a risky venture when you're making minis for another game, where it's like they got to be close enough to the concept to be recognizable for what they are, and people know what they're buying right away. But also, they can't be so close that Games Workshop sends the lawyers after us.
Right. Well, and you're also seeing a lot of industry growth. This is very common from role playing games where
Mm-hmm.
you grow, you hire a freelancer to help out, or you hire a team of freelancers. There are some of our very favorite people that are just designers and they hire sculpting freelancers. But as
Mm-hmm.
those freelancers become faster and better and learn the industry, you are probably training your future competition because they're going to leave and they're going to start
Right.
their own companies and reduce that step between them and the profit line. I mean, that's just good business. Same thing happens with game designers. All of
Mm-hmm.
us eventually either make our own compatible stuff, or if you're running a system that can't be compatible, I know so many people who've gone off and launched very successful indie RPGs that are just their own system. And again, they're getting that little trickle of profit, because gaming, you don't make a lot of money, people, just so you know. But they get that trickle of profit themselves as opposed to having to spread it out among 5 people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that there's that is very real. A lot of these big companies that we've even talked to, some of their artists move on to either other industries where they become concept artists for game companies, or they become their own sculpting companies, and then again possibly competition.
So what's the big takeaway we can take from this? Honestly, we've noticed several people leaving the market recently, but they're almost always getting replaced. Replacement level is still in effect because there's
Yeah.
still more groups launching every single month as well. The number of totals out there being tracked at sites like STL Bundles it's still on the uptick and not on the downtick. And honestly, I think that this is an emerging market. You're going to see this happen. You're going to see the churn. That's going to happen. You're going to see things start to settle, and some of the bigger crews are going to be established. I think we've already seen a lot of the establishment happening. You've got OPR, you've got Arc Villain, you've got Artisan Guild, you've got Titan Forge. Like the top five cast and play. The top five don't really move much these days, and they just keep getting bigger. Um, I still think it's a growing market, and it'll keep
Yep.
being a growing market for probably the foreseeable future because more and more people are seeing how easy it is. The printers are getting better. I'm still getting questions at a ridiculous pace these days in my messages about, hey, what would you recommend to be a starting printer? So as that keeps happening, there's still going to be room, but that does mean there's going to be a ton of competition for people competing in this space. Eventually, it will start to contract, and then it'll contract against a few forces. And I think that we're not quite there yet, but we're starting to see who those players are going to be. Pretty
Right.
obvious at this point.
Yeah. So what I would recommend though is, and this is general advice for any listener or watching people, that you have a creative you like, support them. And I don't just mean buy their stuff. Anonymously buying an STL on My Mini Factory, some of these mid-range creators aren't even going to notice. They're just going to just be the 50 cents or whatever that piles into their account, and they don't even see it, right? But you know, post on their Facebook page, post on their Instagram, show off your painted work. Go to their
Yeah.
Discord and rave. I'm serious, rave. There are some hype crews on some of these Discords. If I had had those hype crews, I would be cranking out content left and right, because it feels good when you have somebody who is cheering you on. And that more than anything is my advice. If you love a creator, support them, promote them, be there in their community if you can. Show their stuff on your socials, link everything. Oh, please. I am always going to be the guy who asks you where that mini came from. Save time and promote your love for those people. Put the link in the comments, please. Are you shaming because you don't do it?
Okay. I I'm a horrible social media fiend, and I try to rise engagement. And because I know that question is coming, I don't answer immediately, and I wait for the question to be asked, and then I answer, so that my social media engagement scores go up.
I totally get that. And to my counter, if you're talking about a creator that you really want to help, the initial engagement is when people see it. And so if they
Yep,
don't see that link there,
I know.
then they never look at it again. It becomes a comment. And the algorithm loves you and loves your content, but that person, that creator isn't getting the next sale. So, but I understand why you would do it. But the good thing is there's two of us, so I can do it on your posts.
Oh goodness. If nobody has asked the question in 15 minutes, I go in and do it, but just to make sure it gets done. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And some people's like, well, I digitally kit bash. You know what? That's awesome. Go tell where you got every freaking part in the model
Oh,
from.
I do that. That is
Yeah.
something I do when I digitally kit bash a model. I'm like, this is a mix between this, and this set.
Yeah.
And then I custom sculpted the foot.
Sync ratio systems get so much love for me because they
Hmm.
do in all of their base sets, they do a
Hmm.
pre-magnetized hollowed version that's already set up for
Ooh.
magnets. And I'd say probably 70% of my minis at this point are on sync ratio bases. And I just go and grab that. And then I'm now just, merging it on the file. And so that's there. But so every time I talk about it, I'm like, oh, look, and here's this base from sync ratio. So I'm talking about 17 different creators, but I probably mentioned sync ratio 10 times in 17, and that's just from their bases and having great bases. So, which,
Yeah, definitely don't forget the base that you printed out when you're shouting out the cool thing. Because, like, there are creators I only get their bases from. Okay, so cast and play. I love cast and play a bunch. I very rarely print all their models. I love their models, but they're so specific that sometimes I don't need them yet.
mm-hmm,
And so I've printed a bunch of their models, but not often. But you know what I print the crap out of?
their
Their
bases.
terrain and their bases. Their
Yeah.
base sets are glorious, and I have often built entire armies on their bases, and that is and Titan Forge is the same way. The terrain and scatter bits are the same way, and then like the cool oogie boogie stuff and the various things is always great too.
Absolutely. I actually did put my cast and play Void Rippers on their cast and play bases, but they're from their Eldritch Horror set, not their Void set. So,
Yeah, and I say that, but then again, like one of my favorite models lately has definitely been Cast and Plays Werewolf.
Werewolf, yes.
Yeah,
Those abs.
yeah.
You could do
Sorry,
your
it's just the one
laundry.
that's here. I know I keep showing it off. It's just the one that's right next to my desk that I can grab real quick. I was like,
Yeah, I
there, Cast and
understand.
Play. I do print their stuff.
I feel bad that I don't have those ego aspects from Fleshcraft, but they're still in my case from traveling.
That is such a creepy set. They're not usually ones that I attribute to creepiness. They usually are very playful. They're more usually in my side of the fence. Cast and play. They're
Oh
usually
yeah,
cute things. Even
it's
their
a
undead set was cute.
yeah. He's not so cute. He's not so cute.
No, it's not cute. It's not cute at all. It's got two mouths and one's in its tummy. If you have a tummy mouth, something's wrong with you.
I like the big tentacles coming out of his back that are so long they wrap over his shoulder and hang back in front of him and can still attack people. They're really big.
And that brings us to the shout out section. Who do you want to shout out to, Kristen?
Well, speaking of sync ratio, they have a Kickstarter. I believe it's Where Legends Fight 3 is going
Oh, yes. I saw that.
on.
It looks good.
Again, huge value. And the thing I'm going to say to folks, back their current Kickstarter if it interests you, but back it on a minimal level so you can get the add-ons because you can get their base sets for super, super cheap. So huge amount of bases. All of the magnetic and hollowing is already done on them. Tons of themes, just so many themes, and they're ultra cheap. So that is definitely something. A reason I would go check them out. But
is this a Frontier?
I want to say it is. I unfortunately did not have the presence of mind to grab the link before, but we'll put it in the show notes if nothing else. But yeah, it's solid. Now watch, it'll be like the last day because we're recording.
Yeah, I cannot find it. I'm like, did it end already?
No, don't say that.
No.
It's okay. They have late backing, and you can still get the add-ons in them. So I'll look for it while you continue. What are you next shouting out?
I do want to shout out to Last Sword Miniatures. I've shouted out them before. They do really awesome stuff. They just did a really cool undead set where they have like their 2 vampire nobles, like the one from last year's Halloween set. They updated it in this year's. They had the female noble vampire this time, and they're posed in one of their poses so that they're riding side by side on horses with 2 goblets clanking against each other. So it's just a really cool scene. Also like alt poses out the wazoo on foot. I like because the female noble has like the full ball gown and the tall hair dress and like 2 freaking falchions that she's dual wielding. Nice. And it's like very Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies look going for her there. And they've made her rideable on a dragon and an undead griffin and a horse and the classic Warhammer black coach is nice. An option as well. And it's cool because the interior of the black coach is just her sitting there with that goblet, clinking it against. Optionally, you can put the male one next to her, so they're, and then like just a dead noble draped over her lap, but that she's drinking from.
Just has a little spigot stuck in him.
Yeah.
I have yet again, by the way, I just confirmed it's 13 hours left in War Legends 3.
Heard y'all.
If you're watching us live, you can go do it. I am positive, though, they will have it on Frontiers for late backing. So,
any of y'all listening to us at 2 a.m. on the podcast feed, you got it. You got minutes left. Oh, gosh. Also, but this month, Last Sword is doing their high elf rotation.
Oh, so and that Phoenix.
They do that Phoenix. They got like one of the best looking Phoenixes I've ever seen. Mount with noble mount as an option, or no armor and you just get the full Phoenix. But what I want to shout out to them is props, and the reason they're getting a shout out this month is because they have finally stopped the "you must download it" Patreon window nonsense. They're using their own website. They're not using my mini factory, but now you just automatically will get your stuff synced to your account to download at your leisure. No need to rush. And that was really bad for them because they would release on the 16th and you had to get it done before the end of the month. So you didn't even get the full month to download their stuff.
Yeah, that's not a great look.
Yeah. But now it doesn't matter. The second their stuff is released, or the second you join, it gets added to your account. Download it when you want.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
Also, speaking of props, Props and Beyond 2, Puzzles and Props Volume 2 started. I feel like sometimes I don't call these out enough, but these are like things like there's wands, potion bottles, card boxes, all sorts of knickknacks for table props if you want to actually pass out, like, physical objects at your gaming table, or just have them on your shelf in your gaming room. They're really cool. That is a Frontier this time, not a Kickstarter, but it's by Props and Beyond. And they have some really neat, just weird physical stuff. There's a printable bonsai tree, which I'm not sure why you wouldn't just get a bonsai tree, but little keys and potion bottles and mortar and pestle, the whole nine. You could do a whole little like alchemy setup with it. Kind of fun.
And I see they got like a stuffed owlbear as an option this time. I love that.
Yep. And there's a nice little dragon skull, I believe.
Little 3-eyed bunny.
And I'm sure there is a discounted version of their previous campaign too, which had a bunch of cool stuff in it. So,
right. Well, that brings us to the end of another great episode. If you want to support us and show us some love, hey, fan mail always makes my day better. Or you could give us a rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, a comment, a like, and a subscribe go a long way, and we would super appreciate it. And then, hey, if you really care, you can hit the little bell, and so that we pop up in your notification feed every time we go live. That will mean you never have to miss an episode. If you want to follow any of our past stuff or download those like really cool versions of us on the Owlbear cart as a printable mini, you can do so over at printergames.com. As well as you'll find link to our socials, our Facebook, our Twitter, and the YouTubes. So until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery, and don't forget to use your screen protector.